Dun 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 dun. You know, I was going to go into an entire thing about the difference between that song and the Ice Ice Baby song and the difference in the bass line, you know? Dun 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 dun. But I think that's kind of, that's too much filler, isn't it? So all Queen and, what in the world is the name of that rapper who made Ice Ice Baby? I have no idea, I forgot. I was born in the year 2000, I don't know this stuff. But all music jokes aside, today we are talking about a player who is indeed under pressure. Pushing down on me. Okay, we're not going to do that. Let's dive into the Vancouver Canucks, because the last video on this YouTube channel went over the idea of them being the worst team in Canada. But now, I wanted to expand more so on the guy who has the biggest grip on being able to change that narrative for his hockey team. It comes to us via a quote of The People's Show earlier last week, or excuse me, no, not The People's Show. This is Reach Deep. Oh yeah, it was the reunion of Reach Deep between Dan Riccio and Randeep Janda. They did a little bit of a reunion there. It was really nice to see. And they had Shane O'Brien, 55, on the broadcast to talk about the Vancouver Canucks and how Elias Pettersson is facing the most pressure than anybody in the NHL this year. Now, you can see that we're not on Twitter right now. We're on CanucksDaily.com, because this piece by Edward Jackson goes out there and transcribes a lot of what it is that Shane O'Mac went out there and said about the Vancouver Canucks superstar. Shane O'Mac? Is this Vince McMahon? No, it's Shane O'Brien. My goodness. Yeah, no, SummerSlam's still ringing in my head there, folks. But we're talking about what Shane O'Brien said about Elias Pettersson. This article is really interesting because it dives into what Pettersson himself firstly said about his struggles with the NHL's Swedish website, talking about his knee injury and how that played a role in his poor start. But now that he's back to full health, he's ready to get back to being the player that he knows he can be. Maybe it was early in the season that I had the wrong attitude, that yes, now I've signed a big contract and now I have to do more, instead of just being myself. And when the points didn't come, I tended to start thinking and overthinking everything instead of doing what I usually do, Petey said. My game last season was obviously not at the level that it was in the 2 seasons before that. I had a knee injury last summer, and that hindered a lot of my training then. It was really hard to train 100%. Now, I'm just trying to look forward. So, pretty honest comments. We already made a video about this, Pettersson speaking out about his struggles, but this is what Shane O'Brien went out there and said on 650 the other week because of those comments. Yeah, I mean, I think this guy has the most pressure on him out of anybody in the NHL. I really do believe that. And I don't know him as a kid. As I've said before, every Swedish I've played with were great guys. The Twins, Oland, Eddie, all those guys. Every Swedish guy I've ever played with. I'm sure he's a great kid. However, now, he's in a situation where he is the guy. He's making big money, and the Canucks, unfortunately, can only go as far as he will take them offensively. And I don't know if he has to be a point per game, but he just has to make an impact night in, night out, and be the best forward on the Vancouver Canucks, because that's what they're paying him to do, O'Brien said. When you make big money like that, that's what comes with the territory. But listen, I'm sure he's back in Sweden, training hard, but I think he knows that coming into this training camp, obviously in a hotbed like Vancouver, but not just Vancouver, everywhere in the NHL, I think this kid has the most pressure on him of anybody in the NHL this year. And quite frankly, I have no reason to disagree with what Shane O'Brien is saying here. Elias Pettersson, in a Vancouver market, as a guy who is as quiet and somewhat reserved as he is, who gives the death stares to media people and who sometimes gets labeled as aloof and maybe lackadaisical in the way that he responds to stuff, at least early on in his career. But Elias Pettersson has opened everything up to Vancouver. Drafted by Vancouver back in 2017, he was a rookie superstar sensation who had some injury worries, but who inevitably had a 100-point season. He played alongside of Andrei Kuzmenko, everything was really good. And then in 23-24, he dipped 89 points, 82 games played. We all recognize that past February of 2024, Elias Pettersson was not the same player. It has been over a year where he has not played all too well, comparative to what he was doing at the start of this season and what he had done the year before. Pettersson, Miller, and Hughes were at the top of the NHL at one point in October of 2023, and when the Canucks were winning games, they were closing out games, they didn't have a single third period choke up until like the 3/4 of the way mark through the season. The Canucks were outstanding in 23-24, the best team in the gosh darn Pacific. They were unstoppable, and I think a lot of Canucks fans saw this season, at least the first parts of the season, as like some of the prime years, the glory years for all three of these dudes, and Miller, Hughes, and Petey, to just absolutely go off on the league. But unfortunately, Pettersson stopped producing after the All-Star break. JT Miller and Quinn Hughes, they still produced, they were fine, but the rest of the team started to notice, and the rest of the league started to notice that, hey, this Elias Pettersson guy is not really doing all too well. We just gotta hope that he's able to continue and improve once the playoffs starts. And he had 6 points in 13 games, 5 assists, that's okay, but 1 goal. I mean, Pettersson definitely was not himself from the All-Star break until the end of the year, and that didn't really do all too much for him in the season after either, because he had 45 points in 64 games. The feud with Miller took over the NHL and the media cycle. There was just so much garbage thrown Pettersson's way in regards to the way fans were approaching him in his game. Hey, this guy stinks. Hey, this guy's unconfident. Hey, these guys not going out there and performing. He's this, he's that, he's whatever. It was really bad for Elias Pettersson. And now, I mean, he's acknowledged his own faults. He's gone out there and said that, yeah, I was overthinking. I was not doing what I usually do. And so with all of this in mind, you think about the Vancouver Canucks and what they have as a team. We spoke about this in the last video, but a lot of what Vancouver is building relies on a bunch of maybes. Maybe Filipino is healthy. Maybe Atiratu is a full-time third-line center. Maybe Elias Pettersson is a 100-point guy. I hate to break it to you, but for as much as Canucks fans need to believe in Kindel and Ratu and all these dudes to be good middle-to-bottom 6 players for the Vancouver Canucks, that pales in comparison to what Vancouver needs out of EP40. He needs to be that stud again. And Shane O'Brien says, okay, maybe he doesn't necessarily need to be a 100-point-per-game guy or whatever. Like, I mean, okay, 100 points per game, that'd be fine. But if Elias Pettersson only has 60 points this upcoming year, if he only gets 65 or 70, I think that's disappointing. I don't know if Elias Pettersson has that same impact like he had a few years ago if he pales in point production. I mean, sure, you can say that he was fine defensively last year. That's the main thing that a lot of Canucks fans would bring up about Elias Pettersson, is that he actually was fine off the puck, but with the puck on his stick, the guy was second-guessing himself like crazy. He was just not there mentally, and that was the biggest obstacle for Vancouver Canucks fans to watch this most previous campaign. It doesn't help that JT Miller also wasn't his best either. I mean, these guys kind of getting into it with each other, and then it infected the whole locker room. The only guy that seemed to have not been affected by any of this drama was Quinn Hughes, and we all recognize that he was by far the most valuable player for Vancouver this previous campaign. Hey, I'm sorry, but you don't need Quinn Hughes to be the most effective player. He's not the most paid. You need Elias Pettersson to do that. Yes, Quinn Hughes is a franchise-level defenseman that the Vancouver Canucks have never had before, but plain and simple, Elias Pettersson is the guy that needs to be leading that charge. Quinn needs to be with Petey. It's not Quinn and everybody else. It should be Petey and Quinn up there together. Should be. I don't know, you can debate whether or not I'm right or wrong in the comments section, but for now, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below about the pressure that Elias Pettersson is facing as a Vancouver Canucks forward heading into the upcoming campaign. What are your thoughts on how he's going to bounce back? Do you think he is going to bounce back? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.